you're going to be given a set of items, what is the term we use for these questions you'll get, or things that we want you to respond to. So you'll be given these surveys multiple times a day, and there's going to be two answer formats. One of them is going to ask you, to what degree have you felt one way or another? That's going to be on a 0 to 100 scale. And the idea here is 0 is none, right? None at all. There will be a couple scales that will be a little bit different, where one side of the scale will mean something different than none at all. And I will be clear about that when I get to those. But most of these will be questions where we ask, have you felt down or depressed? Have you felt anxious? Have you felt afraid? And for those questions, the 0 means nope, 0, none at all. I couldn't possibly feel less fear, for instance. 100 is the opposite, right? So 100 is going to be as much as possible. So now the idea is you could not possibly feel more fear or feel more anxiety, or whatever the question might be, right? So that's this 0 to 100 slider. You can, use that in whatever way works for you. We're aware that individuals will have their own ways of interpreting the words we're providing. What we want you to do is we want to have you do two things. One, keep in mind the descriptions that I'm going to be giving you here, right? And try to the best of your abilities to answer the questions in a way that's consistent with how I'm trying to describe the items for you, the words for you. The other thing is, to the extent possible, we want you to try to use these scales in a consistent way. Right? So it's not going to be possible. You're not a robot. You're not a machine. It's not going to be possible for your 10 to mean the exact same thing every time. And well, no, this time it's definitely a 17 without a doubt, or, something like that. That's not what we're expecting. But I think what we do want is, for instance, your max to be consistent, right? What you think of as the most anxiety possible or the most fear possible. For that to be consistent, and that you're doing your best for the 80 and the 60 and the 40 and whatever the number is along the scale to be pretty consistent for you, for your experience. That's the most important part, right? Because we're doing these things on a person by person basis, what matters most is that the way you use these scales is consistent for you. So each time you get a survey, and every time you look at one of the items on the survey, we want you to think very briefly about your experience during the last hour, and then answer to the best of your ability. What we're looking for is we want a response that's as spontaneous and immediate as possible. We really want this to go pretty quickly. Every time your phone buzzes and it's our survey, we want you to open it up, do a quick scan of your experience, is the way I often phrase it, right? You're thinking about the last hour. How did I feel? What did I do? But we don't want you to overthink it or overanalyze it. We want you to get into a groove of, being able to kind of have a brief check about what your experience has been, and then give us, like I said, these spontaneous answers. It's an interesting thing. We're looking for a balance between thoughtfulness. We really do want you to be thoughtful and give us careful, good quality information. But we also, have been doing this type of research long enough to know that you can do that pretty quickly, that people can do that pretty quickly. And that's how we want you to try to do it. So lastly, we're interested in your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, regardless of whether they occurred in response to something in the external world, there's an event that happened and you had a reaction to it, or seemed to happen spontaneously, right? The feeling of suddenly feeling anxious or suddenly feeling sad, and kind of the sense that it came out of nowhere. When we ask you, for instance, how anxious do you feel? We're not asking about whether there was a reason to be anxious, or, somebody said something to you, or, something happened in the world. We really just want you to think about, in the last hour, what's my level of anxiety been on that 0 to 100, and just try to give us the best answer you can. Okay, so the other type of answer format that we're going to have is simple yes, no. And the questions will ask you, have you had this experience? And then you're going to tell us yes or no. I'll repeat this a little bit later. Something that's important about those items that you'll probably pick up on pretty quickly is, for many of them, if you say no, you'll move on. But if you say yes, you'll then get prompted to say, oh, okay, you've had this experience, and now you'll get the to what degree. So look, let's be honest. It's going to be easy to get through the survey a few seconds faster. I don't know, 10 seconds faster, 15 seconds faster, but noticeably faster. It will be possible to intentionally skip those items to get through the survey faster. And we really ask you not to do that. We're trying to understand, the nature of people's anxiety, why, for instance, they avoid certain situations or experiences, why they might avoid other people, what makes them feel distressed and upset. We really want to understand these things for the value of science and helping people and designing better treatments and all these kinds of things. And as I said earlier, the degree to which you give us sincere, good quality information, I just can't emphasize how much it matters. So while I acknowledge that you can get through one of the surveys a little quicker, if you knowingly say no to something to skip the additional degree question, I just really ask you not do that. And I ask that you just take those extra, again, seconds, moments, just take those extra few seconds. If you had the experience and the answer is yes, just give us that yes, and then a quick to what degree, and then we'll have some really nice data, and we really appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk through the items now. The first item is this question, and it's going to be yes, no, right? So this is a yes, no. We're going to ask you whether in the last hour you have felt distressed. Some of you, that might already make all the sense in the world. You know exactly what that means. And for some, that might be an odd thing to ask. For this question, we'd like you to reflect on the entirety of your current state, or current state being, the last hour, and indicate for us whether you would consider yourself to be experiencing emotional upset. So this could be related to anxiety, depression, frustration, anger, apprehension, unease. There's a lot of words we could use here. We're being intentionally very broad. As you're going to see in a moment, we're going to be very specific about, how anxious have you felt? How afraid have you felt? You'll see we're going to give you a bunch of more specific terms to respond to. But the key distinction here is that your overall emotional experience crosses a personally relevant threshold of unpleasantness, right? So this, could include situations where you might consider using or seeking mental health resources to reduce the amount of distress you're experiencing. The fact is, if you're participating in our study, you've demonstrated to our study staff that you experience significant distress, right? You called and we did a phone screen with you. We did a larger interview with you. So we know you're experiencing distress. What we want to try to figure out is to basically break down your experience into the moments when you are and are not distressed. That's the level of granularity or specificity that we're looking for here. We need your help to make those distinctions, right? So it sort of comes down to thinking about, when you're seeing this item, is this one of the bad moments or not, right? Is this one of the upsetting moments, one of the unpleasant moments or not? Trying to figure out what that threshold is, and are you above it or below it? And if you need any more help or explanation with this item, by all means, reach out to our study staff and we can help you out.